Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Now, I'm not in front of the webcam because, to be honest, I didn't feel like setting it all up, especially since as I'm recording this video, I'm going to be heading over to New York City to see a pretty swell movie, I hear. Yeah, I am really looking forward to seeing that movie, and by the time this video comes out, I already have seen this movie. So, you'll know my thoughts. I will have a review out before this video comes out. Anyways, we're not talking about Shin Ultraman. We're talking about an adaptation of Ultraman that modernizes the franchise or the original show into the modern day, which is what Shin Ultraman does. But this isn't Shin Ultraman, okay? No, this is the Marvel Ultraman comics and actually came out first, so that technically makes Shin the copycat. Anyway, this also is not going to be like a video essay, hence why I didn't record the art time lapse, so I'm just going to be posting pre-recorded clip studio time lapse I did for the 10 Days of Ultraman uh, competition, whatever that was. It wasn't even a competition, really, like just 10 Days of Ultraman celebration. There we go. Celebration. This is the piece that I did for the art show, and that's what you're going to be seeing right here. So, and I'm going to also be posting up pictures from the comics. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through every page or panel. No, I'm just selecting a few examples. So don't copyright strike me, Marvel. Please don't. I'm a small guy, a small YouTuber. I mean no harm. I love your stuff. Well, at least in this instance. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to be taking a look. Well, not really taking a look. I'm more just giving my thoughts for the Marvel Ultraman series so far, because coming up in a week or so from this video is the Mystery of Ultraseven issue 1. Well, at least as far as I know at the time of recording this video. I hope that doesn't change because that's going to screw up my schedule. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to pretty much do this like I did my podcast. I talk about my likes, then I talk about my dislikes. And this is also not going to be very edited. And then I'll wrap it all up with the overall thoughts. And also, just as a heads up, I am not giving a synopsis or anything. I am actually acting on the assumption that you, yes, you, the guy watching this video right now, you handsome devil, you, I am acting on the assumption that you have already read the comics, the Ultraman comics. So, yeah, there's spoilers. I'm going to be going complete through spoilers, or so be forewarned. If you haven't read the comics, I suggest you do so, because if you just want my quick thoughts, non-spoiler thoughts, I like the comics. I do have some problems with that, but I'll get to the problems. But overall, I actually generally like the comics, and I think you should go read them. All right, now for those who haven't read the comic, if you went bye-bye like you should, for those who stayed, yes, let's talk about the comics. So first thing I like is that I really love the art of the comics. I mean, like, it is very vibrant and colorful, and I think it matches the aesthetic of Ultraman really well. And also, it carries the action really well. Like, the poses, they feel very fluid, very dynamic. It's something you expect, you know, with a lot of action comics. In fact, I feel like well, it's definitely a Western comic, like in the style. It does take some influences from manga, I feel like, which is actually, pretty cool considering, the origin of Ultraman is from Japan. And outside of the action, the art's still really good. I don't have any problems with the art. The second thing I like about the comics so far is that I'm really liking this ongoing story. There's like the issues are not episodic like the episodes of the original series. They are instead more, there's an overarching arc. First of all, it's sort of separated into, 5 issue segments, but there's like an overarching story and mystery that is spreading throughout these issues. And I have a good suspicion that Mystery of Ultraseven is going to continue that, as we are, that how Trials of Ultraman ended, that was a pretty big cliffhanger. And that was quite the long wait, Marvel and Ultraman. What took you so long? But yeah, I am really intrigued to see what the mystery, goes from here. The next thing I like is how they updated Hayata and Fuji into the comics. Now, Hayata is still named Shin Hayata, but Fuji's name is Kiki Fuji in the comics, while her, original name is Akiko Fuji, which is interesting, but I guess, again, that goes into the modernization of this. But I really love how they did the characters. I love how they have a friendship before, Science Patrol. They were childhood friends. That is like really well, done. Like you get a sense from both the writing and the art that they are really good friends, and they are honestly a bit more characters than they are in the original show, and they are the ones that need the most updating. Now, not to say that the original characters are bad or anything, but I felt like they were also limited to the writing styles of 60s television. They weren't as depth, and here there's more depth to their characters, and I actually really enjoy these takes. I really love Fuji's attitude, Hayata's optimism. I love how Hayata is actually a character and not just kind of like you know, the heroic, guy in the background. But yeah, anyway, those characters really love. For the fourth thing I like, it's how it does a great job adapting the source material into the modern day. For example, I really love how Science Patrol is a secret international organization. Granted, this isn't necessarily original, as the Ultraman manga has done this, but the difference being Ultraman manga is a sequel to the original, while this is a completely new story to the original, like completely new adaptation is what I meant. But yeah, like from the get-go, they were a secret organization that goes into the public. So it's a reverse of what happens in the Ultraman manga, which I actually kind of enjoy, just a secret organization going into the public. I also love how they fleshed out sort of episode 1 of Ultraman into a 5-issue storyline with Rise of Ultraman. Basically it goes more into detail of Ultraman's fusion with Hayata. In fact, that's like a whole issue in itself. So I love how it spreads episode 1 into, just those 5 issues, the first 5 issues. And I really love, seeing Ultraman and Hayata talking to each other. That I really love. That's something I just generally love when the human host talks to the Ultra. And I also love how they came up with the name, even though it's a little silly, because, in this story, they are the race of Ultras, and Ultraman's name, because Hayata is a man, and Ultraman is an Ultra, so it's Ultra Man. Put them together, you get Ultraman. But it's still a cool name. And then finally, I love how much the team really understands Ultraman, and that being that Ultraman isn't a hero that's supposed to save us, but rather a teacher that's supposed to help us learn and adapt to help fend for ourselves. That's like at Ultraman's core. It's not so much having the aliens come to save the day, but rather having these higher beings teach us humans what we need to do and how we have to always fight to our best or do our best each time. And I think a great example of this is when Ultraman is explaining this to the viewer, saying how they go to races and teach them or help them fight, kaiju. They use Ultraman 80 as a representation, and that's actually really clever considering Ultraman 80 in his original show, he was a teacher, a high school teacher, so he is a Ultraman teacher, respectively, and yeah, and it gets into like when references like that are made, it really shows that the team behind the comics aren't just did like a basic wiki search or are just kind of going off a general basis of what they know. It really feels like this team knows and loves Ultraman. Like they are fans themselves. And I think that is something that a lot of Western adaptations of Ultraman haven't really been successful with. Granted, I haven't seen all of them, but I've heard, like the stories with Shinji Iguchi on the set of Ultraman Powered or Ultraman the Ultimate Hero, and how he described that the people on set didn't understand Ultraman. And there's another example of just how Ultraman Tiga was adapted in the Four Kids show. Just to but again, that's a bad example because that's Four Kids. Four Kids, the guys who like to make Japanese food into jelly donuts and turn frying pans into drying pans. But anyway, the point is the team they got really understands the source material, and that is the biggest benefit or biggest positive of the Ultraman comic series, and I think is one of the key reasons, or at least what I believe makes this a successful Ultraman story. However, I do have some issues. Some of them are nitpicks, but others I do actually have some significant problems with. Or at least I think it hurts the story. But not super much, because again, I do really enjoy these comics. But anyway, let me get into the dislikes right now. The first thing is that I dislike how that the Science Patrol knows that Hayata is Ultraman right off the bat. Now, it's not so much like the core cast, but like the whole organization knows that Ultraman is Hayata. And that's not necessarily, a problem. Like, it's not something that hurts the story. Rather, so much as it's just my personal preference that I don't like, just my preference. I wouldn't have the organization know Hayata is Ultraman. But I mean, granted, how the story is set up, it makes it hard for that to be possible. And I do like how they kept, keep the public out of, the knowledge that Hayata is Ultraman. Still, I just feel like, with what the core of Ultraman is, of how Ultraman is supposed to be, a teacher, I like it when he's sort of, in the background observing until only having to come, out at the last moment. Which, an element of that's still present in the comics, but it's different when, like, the team, like, everybody else knows that Hayata, like the human host or human form is Ultraman, versus when they don't. Now, granted, this isn't something new in the Ultraman series, as Ultraman Mebius did this, but it did it halfway through the series. then the team found out. So it makes it less that Ultraman is really living among the humans and really, trying to teach them as a human first. Anyway, I'm gonna get on my next dislike, and that is I don't like how the Science Patrol and Ultraman are able to talk to each other in battle. I this one, I think this is more of a problem just because of I think how comics are based on the need to have a lot of talking dialogue, in the action battles, which I disagree with, but that is sort of how the industry is, as far as I understand, is that they need characters to be talking to each other. But I I just don't really like that. Ultraman is supposed to be this higher being, something we're not supposed to understand except for the one chosen to be Ultraman. Or again, unless they're in human form. But when they are an Ultra, I think it's fine when humans can talk to Ultraman and Ultraman understands, but it's different when there's a back and forth communication. It's like I don't really care for that. I think it's more interesting when only the Ultra and the human host can talk to each other. I think a great example of how this can be beneficial is Ultraman Z. There's an episode where Zed is trying to communicate to one of the defense team members, and she can't understand what he's trying to say. You know, uh, but anyway, again, I could chalk that up to just being my own personal preference. This next point is definitely my personal preference. I will fully admit that. But they have to give, but I do have a problem with how they kind of have to give an explanation for everything. Like an example, or should I say, for an example, why Shin can only be Ultraman for a certain amount of time. It's not just, oh, because Ultraman can't, because of Earth's atmosphere, you know, the sunlight, can't, like, it's being blocked by Earth's atmosphere, so Ultraman can't absorb, all the light energy or the solar energy he needs, so he has a limited amount of time on Earth. Which I think is a fine explanation, but it goes a little bit deeper here, saying, oh, it's because the merger between Shin and Ultraman wasn't ideal, that there's complications, and that Ultraman has, a limited amount of time. And another example, why Shin can only transform to Ultraman at the last moment. This one I actually have a little bit more of a problem with because, again, it's sort of, you're giving a reason why this has to happen rather than like the message is supposed to be Ultraman is not supposed to help unless we do our best. Unless humanity has done our best, we have exhausted all our options. Here, though, it's because again the merger, it wasn't ideal. So, and Ultraman has and Hayata's, merge or fusion has a limited amount of time or energy and they have to use it sparingly. That's the comics explanation. But in the main series, it's just Ultraman will not help unless we do our best. And they could easily, explain that with the whole, Ultras are a higher being than us. And then for my last point that I dislike, it is definitely, I do think that this is actually something that hurts the comics, not in a significant manner, but I genuinely think the comics would have been better off without this, or they could have done something better. And that is, there's a storyline introduced in Trials of Ultraman with Shin's father. They introduced Shin's father, and Shin blurting out that he's Ultraman out of anger. I didn't really like that. I didn't like how that was sort of handled. And then in issue 5 of Trials of Ultraman, which is the 10th issue of Marvel's Ultraman run altogether, they introduced that, oh, Shin actually has a dead brother and he held this he held back this memory or didn't open up this memory to Ultraman when they fuse. And that's why we, the viewers or readers, haven't heard of, Jiro before. And apparently Shin had some cause to Jiro's death. And I didn't like how they're just introducing this now in the, latest issue of Ultraman. I think the time could have been spent better on other stuff, like focusing on Shin and Kiki's friendship. I felt like that time that they spent on Ultraman, or I'm sorry, Shin and, you know, and his father's drama, it takes away from a already established relationship. And I think they could have focused that more, or better yet, the team dynamic, because while we did get introduced to Ide and Captain Muramatsu, we don't really have a lot of time with them all interacting with each other or just exploring their team dynamic. I would have loved to see more of their team dynamic instead of the father and son drama. And also, if they're going to introduce a character, why haven't they introduced Arashi first? As he is the only original Science Patrol member from the show that has not been brought into the comics, which I think is sort of ridiculous. If you're going to go into struggle, or the hassle to bring Muramatsu, Ide, Fuji, and Hayata, 4 out of the 5, just bring in the 5th member. Don't bring in Hayata's father. I get it. You want to add some more drama, but you could have done something with Arashi instead. Bring his character into Science Patrol. I know he's not the most talk about Science Patrol member from the original show, but he has a significant presence. Like, he is the final member of the Science Patrol that the comics have yet to brought over. And he has one of my favorite episodes that's focused on him, which is Don't Shoot Arashi, where, Arashi has to struggle with, like having to hold back or to not fight the kaiju, to prevent the kaiju from transforming, and it's a really good episode. And I think Arashi needs to be brought into the comics. And I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm hopeful it happens, in Mystery of Ultraseven. But yeah, that's my final dislike. So yeah, to wrap this all up, overall, while not perfect, I do think it's a good step in the right direction. Actually, a great step in the right direction when it comes to bringing Ultraman to a Western audience. I can acknowledge that most of the things I had problems with are solely based on my personal preferences as a fan of the original Ultraman series. And I can understand that other fans will have different interpretations of the Ultraman franchise than I do. But anyways, I am still looking forward to what comes next in Mystery of Ultraseven. So yeah, that does it for this kind of lazy video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you press that subscribe button right now. I got more content on the way, both Ultraman and non-Ultraman alike. I actually got some Kamen Rider videos planned. And what else? Yeah, press the like button if you like that Ultraman is coming to the States. But dislike the button if you just don't like Ultraman, which I have to ask you, have you not seen my channel? Like, I've posted a few videos. I made it clear I'm kind of a pretty cool, pretty big fan of the Ultra. Just saying. I don't know what you're doing here. Leave a comment down below to tell me what I'm doing right or wrong, what I'm doing wrong. Feedback is necessary, especially for my essays. I really appreciate comments on my essays because those are the ones I work the hardest on and the ones I would love to see more improvement. And my general videos overall, I want to see improvement as well. But like I've stated before, is that these videos I just don't put that much effort into versus my essay videos, because if I put the same amount of effort, I would have burned out already. I'm sorry. But yeah, anyway, that's it from me. I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care and shoo watch!